Story time about how I flew 8 hours away to meet a famous guy who eventually ghosted me. Might give you a clue about who this person is in part 3. Disclaimer is not my story time, send me on Instagram. Back in 2020 when all our lives were falling apart, I was really bored. So I decided to get on Instagram and DM some of my celebrity crushes and celebrity influencers / YouTubers, Instagrammers, whatever you want to call them. I never ever expected to get a response. But in fact, I got a couple of responses. One of them being my biggest celebrity crushes. Fortunately, all he wanted was to, do the dirty. And he asked me out right away, but I wasn't comfortable, so I said no. Because I said no, he decided to ghost me too. But then a couple of weeks later, I got a response from one of the influencers. And right away, he asked me out too. He said he wanted to go out for lunch or dinner. But here's the thing, I live on the East Coast, he lives on the West Coast. When I told him this, he actually offered to buy me a ticket to fly out the very next day. I made up an excuse as to why I couldn't go. I told him that I had to work. And he told me that he would pay me to go over there so that I wouldn't lose out on my money. I thought about it for 2 days and I eventually said yes. Am I dumb? Absolutely. Part 2 is up. Story time about how I flew 8 hours to meet a famous guy who eventually ghosted me. I will give you a clue of who it is in part 3. Disclaimers not my story time, was on me on Instagram. He offered to give me the money that I would have made at work and fly me out there. Thought about it and I said yes. By the way, I'm 24 years old. I didn't even tell my parents that I was gonna do this. Made up this whole story about how I won a giveaway and I was needing to fly out the very next day. But here's the thing. The influencer asked me if I could put the flight on my credit card. That once I arrived to LA, he would give me the cash in person. God, how could I be so stupid? I packed my bags and chose my best outfits. I even went to the salon and got my hair done and refreshed my eyelash extensions. So I spent like $400 that day to get ready to go. I called my job and told them that I was sick and that I wouldn't be able to go to work for a week. And the very next morning I got on the flight, which happened to be delayed. So my whole travel time was about 9 hours. We did exchange numbers, so I texted him when I landed. He messages me back saying, awesome, let me know when you're in the Uber, which he had told me that he was gonna go pick me up. Gave me an address which I assumed was his house. But when I showed up, it was a party, like an influencer party, and he wasn't there. Part 3 is up. Story time about how I flew 8 hours to meet a famous guy who ended up ghosting me. I'm giving you guys a clue at the end. Disclaimer is not my story time, send me on Instagram. When I finally got to the address that he had sent me, I realized he wasn't there. It was an influencer party. Like influencers that I knew and I followed on Instagram. So I started going up to people and asking them if they had seen him. Finally, one person told me that they had seen him leave with another girl. Another girl! I was crushed. I went to the bathroom and cried for about 20 minutes. I composed myself and I called him and he didn't answer. I texted him and he didn't answer. Instead, I went to a fancy restaurant in Beverly Hills and I stayed at a nice hotel. I figured I might as well have a good time if I was there. Guess what though? He called me at 3 in the morning when I was asleep. Called him the next morning and he didn't answer. Here's your clue. He has a YouTube channel and used to have long hair. This man proceeded to ghost me for a full week. When I got back home, I sent him a message saying how disappointed I was. That's when he FaceTimes me and asked me to come back to LA. I asked him for the money for the ticket and he said he couldn't give it to me until he saw me in person. What should I do? My boyfriend confessed to me that he's attracted to guys. What should I do? Disclaimer is not my story time, send me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 4 years. 4 years. As you can imagine, his confession was a shock to me. 3 nights ago while we were doing the dirty, he asked me to do some stuff to his bum. And I didn't know what to say. Honestly, I'm not into that, so I said no. After we were done, he asked me why I didn't do it. I told him that it made me feel like it would emasculate him in front of my eyes, and that the thought of him even wanting to do that stuff was a really bad turnoff. Then he said, oh, okay. But the look on his face was weird. I asked him why he wanted that. That's when he said to me that he had been thinking about experimenting. Then he asked me what I thought about it. I told him that I really wasn't into that particular thing, but that we could try other stuff if he wanted to. He then changed the conversation and we didn't touch the topic again. But something made me keep thinking about it. So I took his phone and I started going through his search history. And guess what I found? In his search history, it said, how do I tell my girlfriend I'm attracted to guys? I nearly pooped my pants. I'm not even kidding. I ran to the toilet and pooped. I was sick to my stomach. Part 2 is up. My boyfriend confessed that he's attracted to guys. What should I do? Disclaimer is not my story time, send me on Instagram. After I saw his search history on his phone, I nearly pooped my pants. But luckily, I made it to the toilet in time. By the way, he was napping on the couch while I was looking at his phone. So I decided to take it a step further and get on his laptop. I started looking at his search history and that's when I found it. A link to Reddit. And it was a bunch of people talking about how they came out to their girlfriends as bi or gay. This is when I really started flipping out. Thought maybe he was gonna try to tell me that he was gay or something. A little backstory on him and I. Like I said in part 1, we've been together for 4 years. This is a really, really long time. We've talked about marriage and everything. We even went to look at engagement rings at Tiffany's. Families love each other and I hang out with his parents all the time. And I've never ever gotten the sense that he might be attracted to guys. After I found the search history on his laptop, I woke him up from his nap while holding his laptop. Looks at his laptop and then he looks at me. That's when he said, there's something I need to tell you. And that's when he says it. I'm attracted to guys. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend confessed that he's attracted to guys. What should I do? Disclaimer's not my story time, send me on Instagram. After his confession, I threw his laptop at him. Then he starts explaining himself. He said that he's only been attracted to guys for a few months and that he had been meaning to tell me, but he wasn't sure if he really was attracted or not. That's when I asked him if he was gay or just bi. He said that he thought he was bi because he was still attracted to me. Then I asked him if he had cheated on me with another guy. He stayed quiet for about 10 seconds and finally said no. The fact that he didn't reply right away meant to me that he was lying. And I don't know what to believe anymore. But of course, he asked me not to tell anybody. But it gets worse. He asked me if we could do a 3 Some. I said no right away. Then he told me that I was being closed off. And that if I really loved him, that I need to experiment with him. Because otherwise, he's gonna go and do it on his own. Honestly, to me, this is just a threat. I don't want to do it with somebody else in the room with us. And I don't want him to be bi. When we first got together, he was completely straight. So now you're telling me I have to worry about guys and girls? He keeps on insisting to do it. What should I do?